LP5 LP50, changing a 5-shot trigger spring 450 to 1050 grams. Firstly, remove the grip from the weapon. Then turn this 2.5mm Allen screw completely out. And remove this second screw using a 2mm Allen key. The trigger can then be simply extracted. Push out the pin. Be careful, as this is where the spring is located. This has now fallen out. The remaining trigger part also contains a spring. I recommend, for example by using a screwdriver, that the mechanism is wedged open to ensure that the spring does not jump out. We replace the old spring for triggers 200 to 400 grams, with the new spring corresponding with the International Shooting Sport Federation rules from 450 to 1050 grams. Before installing the new spring, compress this a couple of times. When the two trigger parts are combined, the spring sits in this position. Before combining the parts, place the spring in this position and simply place the second part on top. Then reinsert the pin to hold everything in place. Now the trigger can be reinserted. To make sure that the trigger sits in the correct position, you must push back the slide to the locked position. It is only possible to place the trigger in this position when the weapon is cocked. In this position, the holes in the trigger and the housing line up. Holding the trigger in place, reinsert the 2mm tapered screw in the appropriate hole and tighten. It should only be finger tight. This 2.5mm screw acts as a fixing screw to hold everything tight. The weapon is now checked to make sure it is functioning. The system needs to be cocked for this purpose. The two slides are parallel, therefore the weapon can be cocked from one or both sides. In the cocked state, the trigger can be operated and the weapon fired. Now we make sure the trigger is correctly adjusted. Begin by loosening the trigger strop screw. You will find this screw behind the trigger. It is a 1.5mm Allen screw. By unscrewing this half a turn, it will ensure that the trigger operates. Now cock the weapon. Screwing in clockwise this 1.5mm Allen screw at the rear, it is the one sealed with red lacquer, will fire the weapon. At this point, loosen the screw 3/4 of a turn backwards, that is, in an anti-clockwise direction. Cock the weapon once more. The forwardmost screw here is used to adjust the first stage travel. With the weapon in a cocked state, rotate the screw in a clockwise direction until the weapon fires. After this release, turn the screw half a revolution backwards. It should not be less than half a turn, or else a perfect function cannot be guaranteed. Cock the weapon once more in order to adjust the trigger stop. Use this screw underneath for adjustment. This time hold the trigger because it may not operate. Now turn the screw an entire turn in a clockwise direction. Now try to release the weapon. As you can see, the weapon does not fire. While squeezing the trigger, slowly unscrew the screw until the weapon fires. At this firing position, turn the screw a further quarter of a turn anti-clockwise. Now we check and adjust the trigger weight. This slotted screw found under the trigger is used for making trigger weight adjustments. Now we cock the weapon again and check the trigger weight. It has not held the 500 gram weight and the trigger has released. Through turning the trigger weight screw in the clockwise direction, the trigger weight increases and the correct release is achieved. Cock again. The trigger is now perfectly adjusted.